Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and welcome to another video. And today is a really fun one because we are finally doing a spooky bookshelf scavenger hunt to choose my next read. I have seen this video done by Ellen Catherine specifically on YouTube. I will link her channel down below to this video so you can see the way that she does it. And if you're not familiar with what this is, it's essentially a series of 10 questions that I will be answering that will lead me to choose my next read. So one question will lead me to one book, then I will answer another question based on that book that I've chosen, and so on and so forth. And at the end of this, we should get a book to read together in a reading vlog. Now, I want to do this kind of in a spooky season theme, so I will be primarily focusing on like my fantasy shelves and like the paranormal and like kind of thrillers area. But again, I don't really have all that much control as to what books go into this because it just all kind of depends on the questions and like the book that was chosen before it. So we will see how this goes, but I will try to kind of keep it to like the spooky season reads so that we kind of have this video on theme. Hence why I am wearing my Hocus Pocus sweatshirt. You kind of can't see it over my little mic here, but that is the theme of this video. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with choosing my next read. Hopefully it's a spooky one, fingers crossed, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so the first question is, choose a book with a cover that you love and find a book with a similar cover. So I just need to find a book with a cover that I love. Easy enough. Let's go take a look at the shelves. Arcana is cute, but I don't think I love it. I do like this one, maybe a special edition. So the book that I've chosen for this is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And this is the illustrated anniversary edition. And this cover is my absolute favorite. I love how simple it is. I love that it's white. I love that it has like these gray kind of flowers on it. And it has like the gold foiling in the author name. It's just such a beautiful edition. This also has like beautiful sprayed edges with just like gray flowers on it. Also, this edition specifically has foiling on the naked cover of these like beautiful silver foiled flowers and beautiful end papers as well. So I absolutely love this book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I read this, I think it was in 2023 or something, and it's kind of perfect for spooky season because it follows this girl, Addie, who makes a deal with death itself, and he basically makes her immortal. But one of the things that she didn't foresee happening was that like the bargain with him, there was going to be a consequence that she will live forever, but nobody will remember her. So this is a very emotional book, kind of like dark, a little gloomy, full of drama and things like that. So highly recommend this one if you have not read this yet. I feel like a lot of people have read this book already because it is such a popular book, but if you haven't read this yet, now's your time. Okay, so now the second question is, turn to page 50 and find a book that has one of the words from the first sentence on that page in the title or on the cover. Okay, so page 50, the first sentence is, Maman, she says, stepping inside. Maman, she says, stepping inside is the first sentence. Now I need to find a book that has any one of those words in the title or on the cover. Let's take a look at the bookshelves and see what we have. Maybe something with the word step or inside. I'm not seeing anything on the fantasy shelves. I feel like inside would be my best bet. Do I have a title with something that says inside? I don't see anything. Okay, so I did actually find a book that answers this question, and that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. You know, she says say. It's not exact, but it's a different tense of the same word, and I think it works for this purpose. So this is the one I went with. This is not a spooky season read, it's a summer read, but I still actually highly recommend this book. This was a 6-star read for me. I really loved this book and Abby Jimenez books in general. This one follows the main characters Xavier and Samantha, and they go on this amazing date. They are like soulmates, it seems like, but then they have to deal with her moving across the country to go take care of her mom and kind of have to like deal with all those issues and kind of overcome all of that. The writing in this book is amazing. It's so heartfelt, so emotional, and I highly recommend you read this book if you haven't done so yet, but this is one of my favorite reads of the year. So the third question is, list some of the tropes of that book and find a book with similar tropes. So for this, I'm gonna need another dislike to love, contemporary romance, maybe mom with Alzheimer's, because I think that's what her mom had in this book. And I can think of a book that kind of has that actually. So let me go take a look. Okay. I think I'm gonna go with Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. Yes, we are kind of getting away from the spooky season reads and like fantasies and stuff like that, but hopefully we'll be able to bring this back soon. But this one essentially follows the main character Joni and Sebastian, and Joni's mom also has Alzheimer's and she moves from California, not to California, but from California to, I think it was South Carolina or something like that, to take care of her mom. And her parents own this kind of like music venue where she's going to be kind of like helping out with working there and trying to save it essentially. But before she goes there, she meets the main character Sebastian, and she doesn't really like him because he's a rock star and they don't get off on the right foot. But as she travels to South Carolina or wherever it was, she starts hearing this melody and this voice in her head. So it's kind of like a magical realism kind of thing. I thought the concept of this was really, really good. It wasn't like the best development of the story or the romance, but I still really enjoyed this book. I actually vlogged both of these books in the same vlog this summer. So if you want to hear more detailed thoughts on these books, definitely check out that video. But this is the next book that I've chosen because it does have kind of like similar tropes of a dislike to love, a mom with Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that, and the two main characters kind of overcoming like the distance issues. So this is the next book. Let's see what the next question is. Now find a book with opposite tropes from your current book. So now I need to find a book with opposite tropes to this. So that might be like maybe a fantasy, maybe a thriller even, maybe a friends to lovers or something. Definitely not magical realism. So let's go see what we have. Okay, so for this, I actually decided to go with a romantic suspense, which is Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. And this is kind of opposite from Sounds Like Love, number one, because it's not a magical realism. This is kind of like a thriller. It's kind of giving like thriller vibes, but it is still a romance, and it is a cowboy romance. So that's kind of the opposite of that. So essentially what this is about is the main character, Lainey, goes into witness protection, and she gets taken to a bourbon distillery owned by the Fox family to kind of hide out and be somebody else, essentially. But one of the Fox brothers who lives there and works at the distillery or owns the distillery, he was a former cop, so he's suspecting her of lying about who she is, which obviously she is because she's in witness protection. And it's just kind of like a very suspenseful read, which I think would be really good for the fall season. It's not like super scary or anything like that, or scary at all really, but it is suspenseful because you are trying to figure out the mystery of like what she did in order to go into witness protection, like what happened to her in order for her to end up in witness protection. But I really, really enjoyed this book and I had a really good time reading it. So that's the next book I've chosen. Let's see what the next question is. Reverse the page number of this book and then find a book with a similar page number. So this book has 427 pages. So reversing this page number would be 724. So I need to find a book with about 700 pages or something like that. Maybe Crescent City? How many pages does this book have? 800. It's too long. Let's see. 600. Okay, so I needed a book with 724 pages and I found one with 745, so that's kind of close. And that is Eldridge by Carrie Lake. I have not actually read this book yet, but I hear really, really good things about this series. The first book in this series is called Anathema, and this is the second one that just came out. It's supposed to have really, really spooky vibes, like really good spooky vibes. I can't really say I recommend it yet, but it's definitely on my TBR to read soon, and hopefully I'll be able to read it before this year is over. So the next question is find a book with a similar color scheme to this book. So this is kind of like red, gray, dark. There's a girl in a gown here holding a skull and like a raven or a crow at the top. I don't really know if that's a raven or a crow, but this is the cover. So we're going to try to find a similar color scheme. All right, so for this one, I've chosen Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. It's kind of got like the gray, red kind of accents. I think both of these are very, very similar in terms of the cover and the color scheme. Like this one has a bird at the top. This one kind of has a moth at the top. We've got the red center, and like overall it's kind of just like gray. So I think these are super close. So we're going with Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. This is another book that's in the witch academy setting where a young witch goes to school to learn how to be a witch. And on her quest to find her familiar, she actually opens up this tomb of something she didn't mean to open up the tomb of. And somebody comes back to life and he claims that she is his ex-wife, or like his like long lost wife, and that she cursed him to be in that tomb for like eternity. So there's definitely some mystery around that. This one is definitely really, really fun. I really enjoyed this one. I love this series so far. I have the third book that I haven't read yet, but I have read this one and the second book, and they were both 5 stars for me. So definitely recommend you pick this one up as well if you kind of like fun, witchy, witch academy books, which I personally do. So the next question is find a book that was published in the same year. So when was this published? This book was published in 2023. I need to find another book that was published in 2023, which should be easy because I should have a lot of books from 2023. So for this one, I've chosen Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. And this is the second book in the Legends and Latte series. This is a cozy fantasy following an orc who basically starts a coffee shop in like this town, and nobody really knows about what coffee is. That's kind of what happens in Legends and Lattes. She opens up a coffee shop. She's got like her crew of people, and this book continues her story. It's actually kind of like the prequel to Legends and Lattes, but you're supposed to read this after Legends and Lattes. And this book introduces you to like how she became who she was and how she discovered coffee and that she wants to open the coffee shop and stuff like that. And during that process, she finds this bookshop in her town, and she goes and checks out books and reads them and drinks her coffee. And it's really, really cozy and just like really nice to read like under a warm blanket, cuddled up, where, you know, maybe you have a fire going or something like that. So highly recommend this series if you like cozy fantasies and if you like the concept of like low stakes, not a lot of stuff happening, not a lot of anxiety and things like that. So the next question is, go to the first page and count the number of letters in the first word, and then find a book with a similar number of pages to letters in the word times 100. So if it's a 7-letter word, I need to find a 700-page book. So first page, first word. So the first word is 18, which is 8 letters. So now I need to find an 800-page book. So I don't have that many 800-page books that I've read, so it was slim pickings, but I did find one, and that is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, the first book, House of Earth and Blood. And this book has 819 pages, so that answers that question. I did really like this series, like the first book and the second book. The third book kind of fell off for me, but I got the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions of these books, which I really, really love because I think they're so beautiful. I love how they don't have the title on the cover. They only have the titles on the spine, which I think is really beautiful. And I don't really know like what the covers signify, like who is this woman and what does she mean, but I just think they're super pretty. This book is very intricate. This entire series is very intricate. There are a lot of characters. It's an urban fantasy following Bryce and Hunt, and Bryce is trying to uncover the mystery of like who killed her friends and why, and Hunt is assigned to help her. And the next question is, we're getting to the end here. Find a book with the same number of letters in the title as the first number of total pages. So if it's a 700-page book, I need a book with 7 letters in the title. So this is an 800-page book, so I need to find a book with 8 letters in the title. Let's see what we have. Okay, so for this one, I've chosen Fearless by Lauren Roberts. This has 8 letters in the title, and this is the third book in the Powerless series, and I think it's the final book, although there is one more novella in the series that I have not read yet, but I will be reading it just to like finish out the series. This series basically follows Peyton, Kai, and Kit. And Peyton is kind of like a ordinary living in a world where other people have powers. I forgot what it's called already. And she's kind of hiding the fact that she doesn't have any powers. It's young adult, but it's still pretty fun. I had a pretty good time with the series. It wasn't like the best series of all time, but I still had a pretty good time with it because it's like very fast paced and very high stakes. So I would recommend it for that. If you are looking for a fast paced, high stakes fantasy, this is a pretty good one. It's also a very popular series, so I'm sure you've already heard of it. So now let's move on to the final question that's going to determine what we're going to read this week. So the final question is, find a book whose title or author name starts with the last letter of the previous book. So the last letter of this book is S. So I need to find a book whose title or author name starts with S. That should be pretty easy, but let's see if we can find a book that's kind of like spooky, maybe a paranormal or something like that, that would be like really fitting for this season. So let me go take a look at my bookshelves and I'll be right back. Let's see, Silver Elite by Danny Francis, that could work. I haven't read that yet. On Wings of Blood by Briar Boylan, that won't work. I did want to read that. No, that. Nothing there. Okay, so I have 2 options for this actually. The first one I picked was Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney, so obviously that starts with an S. And the other one is Slewfoot by Brom, which is a horror. This one is a thriller, I think. This one is a horror. So which one should we do? Kind of leaning towards the horror book because I think it'll be an experience. I have not read any horror before. The closest thing that I've read would be Stephen King's Billy Summers, which is not a horror. It's actually a thriller. So this would definitely be a first for me. And I think that that's what I want to do because I definitely want to read this book this month. I definitely don't want to miss my window of reading a horror before Halloween. So I think this is the final choice, and I'm going to get started on reading this and then check in with you guys when I have my first update on how we're doing with this book. Wish me luck, please. Seriously, guys, what am I doing to myself though? I mean, like, Can I even do this? Like, look at some of the imagery in this book. Is this not the creepiest thing you've ever seen? Like, seriously though, what are these things? Like, what is this book about even? So I have my work cut out for me. This is the one I'm going with. I'm gonna get started with it and then check in with you guys when I have my first update. Good morning. So I read to chapter 7, I think it was yesterday. Yes, chapter 7, page 147. So I'm about halfway through or right at the halfway through point. And this one starts off really, really creepy. It's not as creepy anymore as it was like in the beginning, because in the beginning, like nothing's explained and like you're just kind of like starting off in like the head of some creature that you don't understand what it is, but it's like hungry for blood and you don't really know like what kind of creature it is. Like, is it a vampire? Is it a monster? Like, what is it, you know? So essentially this takes place in 1666 and it follows the main character Abatha, and she's actually from England, but she married into a Puritan family. So she moves to Connecticut to be married, and she lives with her husband Edward on a farm on the outskirts of this small town called Sutton in Connecticut. So that's during like the witch hunting times. They're very like religious because they're Puritans. So, you know, like everything is about like the devil and God and like, you know, being punished for your sins and stuff like that. So like that's kind of like the culture that's happening right now. I don't really love that, but that is the time that this book takes place. And Edward is actually not that bad. He's actually a pretty good guy for the times. He's like a nice guy. He, you know, treats her pretty well, but just the time is not very good to women in general. And what happens is Edward's older brother decides to take Edward's farm and put it up as collateral on a loan that he took and then defaulted on. So now they're coming after the farm. Obviously, Edward and Abatha are very upset about that because that means they could be homeless, they could be evicted off of their land, and they won't have any like means to survive, or they'll basically take their house. So they're obviously very upset about that. And Abatha is not a person that normally like holds her tongue. She's kind of like speaks out a little bit, even though she's not supposed to. And, you know, as you can imagine, that's not really great because she's a woman in a time where women were supposed to be super obedient and like meek and pious and all that stuff, you know? So one day their goat escapes and she runs into the forest to look for it and she can't find it. She kind of like tracks it into this cave and she figures out that the goat is dead because it must have fallen into like a well in the cave, and she hears and like kind of like sees some creepy stuff going on in there. So she runs away. She tells Edward about it and then he goes in there and then he falls into the cave and supposedly dies. Okay. So now she's left by herself dealing with her husband's brother and like them trying to take the land in a time where women were persecuted for being witches because they owned property or they were widows or something like that. And that's kind of like an excuse that society used back then in order to steal from them and so on and so forth. So all that stuff is very, very bad. I hate reading that, honestly. I hate all that religious stuff in this book. Oh, and another thing is that Abatha is also considered to be a cunning woman, which means she basically dabbles in like pagan traditions, like herbal remedies and stuff like that, which the Puritans don't like because they associate it with like the devil work and witchery and stuff like that. So I think that's obviously a foreshadowing that she's going to be accused of being a witch later in this book. Not 100% sure, but I think it's pretty safe to say that that's what's going to happen. So she ends up meeting the creature in the forest. We did kind of already get introduced to those creatures, but it's not really clear as to what they are. It's very mysterious in that sense. Like, I really don't know what they are. There's several of them. We just know that they want to drink people's blood. They're kind of in the form of animals and people combined. Like, if you look at some of the imagery in this book that's in the middle, like, it's pictures of all of the characters essentially. So we have a picture of Abatha. That's her right there. There's Forest and Creek. There's Sky and Samson. So these guys are all the forest creatures. Yeah, they're really strange. I really don't know what they are and it's not explained. It's kind of just left to be a mystery for now. So hopefully that does get explained, but it's really creepy that they have like human faces and like a fish body and like a possum's body and like a raven and a goat and stuff like that. I really like that the author did these drawings. They are hand drawn by the author, which I think is super cool. The writing is really, really good. It was confusing in the beginning because I just couldn't understand like what was happening. But then like once you get into the story and like the storyline of Abatha with like the brother and like what's happening with her land and how the creatures kind of like come out of the forest and stuff like that, like it gets really interesting. And like I feel like the spooky parts of it are kind of done now, hopefully, because now that you're kind of like familiar with them, it's not quite as scary. But the setup and the intro and everything like that is very creepy, very spooky, very kind of like dark and gothic. I'm really enjoying that. I don't like the religious aspect of it and how like cruel it was, the Puritans and everything they believed in and how they treated women back then. Like, that's actually kind of triggering for me, but I'm going to keep reading because that was the time. This is considered a historical paranormal horror, so I feel like it is pretty accurate of the time. I'm going to keep reading and keep you guys updated. Probably when I'm done with the book. Hopefully I'll be able to finish this today. I do have a little bit to go, but I did read quite a bit yesterday, so hopefully I'll be able to finish this and give you guys my final thoughts on this book. Good morning. So I finished Slewfoot yesterday by Brom, and this one was not as bad as I expected. Like, honestly, I said this in my last clip. The beginning of this is very creepy and kind of spooky, but it gets a little bit more dark in the sense that it's like very graphic in terms of torture scenes and stuff like that, but it's not really that scary, spooky in terms of like the monsters and like paranormal stuff. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Again, there is a lot of religion in this, but I guess that's realistic for the time because they are Puritans. It's set in the 1600s and, you know, women were not treated very well back then. So beware of that. If that triggers you, you know, fair warning for that. And there are a lot of gruesome torture scenes, especially towards the end. So if that triggers you, beware because it is very, very gruesome in that sense. But other than that, I thought the creatures were super creative. I actually really liked them. I ended up liking all of the creatures at the end. Like, at first I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I did end up liking all of them, especially Samson. He was my favorite of all of the creatures. And I really, really loved Abatha because she was like very, very brave. She stood up for herself. She knew what she believed in. And she was like a total badass in some scenes. So I really loved her as a character. And I really loved the revenge plot. Like, there's a very good revenge plot in here and it's very satisfying. So if you love a good revenge plot, it happens here and it's really good. The writing was really good. It flowed really well. It kept my attention. It did slow down a little bit, like in the middle parts of it, but overall it kept my attention and I kept wanting to continue reading. So that's a good sign. And overall, I just really enjoyed the book and the ending. Like the ending is really good. So I would actually recommend this one, especially if you're not like a horror reader like myself. Like I don't read any horror. This is the first horror I've ever read, but if you want to give it a try, I would definitely recommend this one. I think I'm going to rate this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but there was a little bit too much religious stuff in here, which did trigger me a little bit, and it did slow down in the middle a little bit. But other than that, I had a really good time. I'm glad I picked this book up because it was definitely an experience. And I think I'll look into other books by this author because they seem like they come up with like very creative stories. Okay, there's 5 other books by this author. I think I'm going to look into maybe getting another one because it's a very creative story. I thought it was very well done, and I would be interested in reading more by this author. So that concludes today's reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts on the bookshelf scavenger hunt idea. I personally really enjoyed it, so I want to do more videos like this, but let me know your thoughts. And if you've made it to this part of the video, please leave me a goat emoji down below in the comments for Samson from Slewfoot, this little guy right here, because we loved him as a character. He was excellent. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As always, all my links are down below to my Instagram, Goodreads, and TikTok. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.